Hey folks, how are you doing today? Now, welcome to this presentation, this workshop, all about how to start engaging with podcasts. Now, my name's Gary Jones and I'm from Grow Radio, as you can see from the banner and also on my t-shirt, which is secured by my name. But I'm here to talk to you about the 5 different ways of how you can start engaging with podcasts today. So we're going to be, over this session, there's going to be split into 2 parts. Really, the first part is going to be a presentation, which is just going to be there, where I'm going to be talking to you about the 5 different ways. We'll also meet a few different people with different podcasting abilities, so you can see that how each of those types of people would be able to see and use those bits to do that. Now, because we had some issues with the audio last time, I'm just making sure we've got the right microphone, and we have, so that's all good. So we're going to be meeting the 3 different types of people with 3 different podcast experiences. Then I'm going to be talking to you about the 5 different ways of how you can get involved with podcasting. After that, I will put it over to you guys and girls who are watching, either live or in the comments, and it's your chance to ask me any questions you have about podcasting. So if you've got any burning questions about launching a podcast, sponsoring a podcast, being a guest on a podcast, or what the hell is a podcast, then put them in the comments and let us know. Also, if you are watching live, I would love to know what your podcasting kind of levels are. So let's meet me to start off with. So who am I? So my name's Gary Jones. I founded Grow Radio back in 2022, so a couple of years ago. And I started listening to podcasts as a general user, literally just commuting from my hometown at the time to where I worked. It was about a 45-minute commute. And this was back in the day when you had CDs were just about still there, but most people had an MP3 player. But live streaming wasn't really a thing. You could just about get iPlay on your phone, just about. But you had to have a pretty damn good signal, and it would take ages for it to kind of do. The latency was really bad. So, it was back in the day where you would be sitting in a carriage on a bus or on a train, and people would be reading instead of watching stuff on their phones. It was one of those kind of things. So I was literally into triathlons at the time, and I really enjoyed reading the Triathlon magazine. So therefore, I wanted them to start to understand that world a little bit more. And I saw an advert in there for a podcast triathlon, which was available on Apple Podcasts, at iTunes at the time, because Apple Podcasts wasn't a thing. And I kind of popped onto Apple Podcasts, iTunes, saw a podcast little link, and I started listening to it. And back in the day, there was only literally 1 or 2 British people doing podcasting. It was mainly American, very collegiate kind of vibe to it. And I was just absorbed into this world. And it was a world where I was reading it and I was understanding it. And I was looking forward to the races and I was hearing about the races from the magazine. But now I can actually hear the athletes speak. I could hear the athletes talk about how they were training, how they felt, what went into it, what they had to kind of sacrifice to do it. It was a whole different bag kettle of fish. So for me, actually, podcasting, really, my love of podcasting started from there. And it was from that interview-based podcast about that particular my dog could bark in any second, but he's not, because he's a good boy. Yes, he is. But that was where I really started to love podcasts. And that was back in 2004. That was back in 2010. 2004, a few years later, I approached a couple of radio stations to see if I could come and guest on their shows. And I approached a number of them. One of them came back to me and said, and we had a meeting the following day. In that meeting, it transpires that I wasn't going to be a guest on one of their shows. I was actually going to launch my own show. I had 2 problems though. I had a week to do it because they wanted me to launch at a particular time, and I only had a mobile phone to be able to do it, to create it. I didn't have a laptop or any other equipment. So I had a week and a phone to record a podcast, which pretty much was the radio show. It was an MP3 file which we uploaded onto the server. And I did it. I loved doing it. I straight away went out to 6 of my contacts and said, look, I've got this opportunity. Let's get you onto this radio show. And that's how it all started. From the radio show, I split the segments into individual episodes, so therefore it became a podcast as well, which you could find on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that jazz. A few years later, I started up my own marketing company, helping people to really learn social media and kind of develop their voice online. That was kind of where it was. So social media skills, did a few workshops, but really started to take podcasting seriously a few years later, where a few of my local contacts mentioned that they were looking to start a podcast, but they didn't want to do the technical stuff. They just wanted to jump on, have a chat, and then send it to someone, i.e. me, to do the technical stuff. So that's where I started, and that was 2018. I really started producing podcasts for people. And then fast forward 4 or 5 years later, I was getting inquiries from different people, becoming a guest, launching a podcast production, wanting a bit of podcast training, and I put it all into one place, which was a place called Grow Radio. So this is where, if you want to expand your podcasting skills, either reach new people through broadcasting your podcast onto Grow Radio, or just join in our monthly training sessions, or there's loads of ways to do it. There's loads of ways to get involved with Grow Radio, sponsoring and all that kind of stuff. The main thing is I brought everything into Grow Radio, so it's all in one place. So now I want you to meet Sue, Barry, and Dave, because you know me. I want you to meet these guys here. Now, Sue, Barry, and Dave have got different podcasting experiences, and they've got different love-hate relationships with podcasting. So let's meet them, and let's see who you resonate with. So Sue is the most common person you will find probably at one of these things. She has a general interest in podcasts. She might have listened to 1 or 2 podcasts in the past, and hell, she might have subscribed to a couple of them on her favorite podcasting app. But she might think that being a guest on a podcast might be a bit too step too far. She might actually think she might have plans to start her own podcast instead, but she hasn't really done much about it. So that's Sue's most common person who I speak to about podcasting. Barry has no idea about podcasting whatsoever. He is the kind of person who would come on here and ask what a podcast actually is, and that's fine, because Barry doesn't know about podcasts. He missed it, or he just didn't want to learn about it. So for Barry's, I will give a brief overview of each of the topics right at the start, which will just explain a little bit more about it. But that is a Barry, or as my designer says, me with better teeth, because he has got damn good teeth. Next up is Dave. Now, Dave is a podcasting legend. He's the kind of person who, when people say podcast, people think of him. Especially in his local area. He's got a really good community, which is all around podcasting. And he's the kind of person who will help people set up podcasts, who would be a guest on different people's podcasts. And yeah, he loves podcasting. He might not have the time to do it all himself, so he might outsource a few bits. But that's Dave, and he loves podcasts. So they're the 3 different types of people who I normally speak to. So who are you? Who are you in that remit? I would love to know who you are and what your podcasting experiences are. Now, obviously, if you have any questions at any point in time, please put them into the comments, especially if you're not watching this live. I'm still going to pick up the comments, so please check it out. This is going on to YouTube and also LinkedIn as well. So if you are on those platforms and you do listen to and you are watching this and you have a question, please put it in the comments, because I will reply. And also I'll give you a few little bits right at the end. So and a couple of free gifts right at the end for you, and hopefully we can stay in touch after this. So what can you start doing today? That is the big thing. What can you start doing today? All right. Number 1, everybody will benefit from listening to podcasts. Irregardless of your skill level, your podcast experience, your podcasting goals, starting listening to podcasts is an ideal way to learn the trade, to expand your knowledge, and also your skills when it comes to podcasting. It is brilliant, absolutely brilliant way. Every course that I create, I put this in because it is so important. Now, the great thing is, but listening to podcasts are generally 99.9% free of charge. You don't have to, it doesn't cost a penny, and you can get it using different apps that you'll have on your phone. So if you're an Apple user, you'll have Apple Podcasts already downloaded in. If you're an Android user, you might have Spotify already downloaded. If not, you can download it, or Amazon Music. These are platforms where you can listen to podcasts, and more importantly, you can search for different podcasts, and then you can listen to their back library. So it doesn't matter if there's 120 episodes in their back catalogue, or if there's 4 episodes in their back catalogue. Most of the time, you can listen to all of those for free. I say most of the time because there are subscription podcasts which will give you 1 or 2 for free, and then you have to subscribe to get the rest. But that's in the minority, not the majority. So, listening to podcasts are a great way of learning stuff. If you want to learn a different topic, a little bit of a specific topic, go listen to a podcast, and then you'll be able to learn about that particular topic. A great way of just relaxing. There's loads of audio books and story podcasts out there where you can literally just tune out the world, put headphones on, and just relax. But there's also loads of podcasts out there which are just about general topics. They could be about a particular TV show, a particular film. It could be about a particular event that's happening. And that will give you insights that you might not have had before. Think about my experiences with podcasting. I was reading about the triathletes and how they trained. Now I was actually listening to them. It's so powerful, so powerful. And I know back in the day, YouTube wasn't really a thing. Now it is. So people are more accessible. But even so, you can still learn so much and get so many more really quick insights by listening to the podcast that they appear on, or they talk about that particular thing about. Really cool. Now, if you're looking to start your own podcast, this is great for you to do some market research and figure out what you like and what you don't like. All the stuff that you like, great, include in your podcast. All the stuff you don't like, or you see that you think, actually, I'm not sure about that, you're not putting in. You're not even touching with your podcast. So it's a great way to figure out what you like and what you don't like. Also, if you're a guest on a podcast or going to be a guest on a podcast, you listen to maybe 3 episodes of that particular show before you go on. It's going to give you a lot more ideas about what to say. It will give you insights into the types of answers you should give based on the time they allow for each question. It also is going to give you insights about how the host kind of deals with their guests in regards to the common questions they ask, the speed of delivery, and just generally what it's all about. You can also refer to previous episodes in your podcast as well, which doesn't do any harm whatsoever as well. So listening to podcasts are a great way of just getting into it, but also then to honing your skills. Next up is you can join a podcasting community. Now, most podcasts will have a community around it, whether it's a Facebook group, LinkedIn group, page, whatever it is, or a paid subscription on Patreon or other subscription mod communities out there. But the main thing is you're connecting with like-minded people. You are. And what a great thing about that is when you're connecting with like-minded people, you can actually really get a feel for what they are and what they're doing. And you can get to know people on a person-to-person level. Now, as well as being a great place just to talk about that particular topic. So just a heads up, I'm a big Marvel fan. So I'm part of a Marvel podcast group. And we talk about Marvel theories, what's coming on, what could happen in these things, reviews, different things, comics, films, all that kind of stuff. It's great. But you can really geek out in your particular topic. So what we're going to be doing is with podcast communities, join it as a person. Don't use it as a sales tool. That could come later on. But join it and just have a chat with people. Just have a chat with people and go from there. And I can see Luke is joining. I will reply to your DM next after this, buddy. Haven't forgotten. I will get it back. And thank you so much for your wise words. Thank you. So, podcasting groups and communities are great. 9 times out of 10, they're free. But if you do pay, on places like Patreon, you will get extra stuff. So you will get bonus content. You might have ad-free stuff, depending on what tiers you are. You might have bonus episodes, which are just completely about a different topic, which is great fun as well to listen to. You might actually be able to steer the direction of the podcast as well. The podcast host might throw a few questions out to you to say, actually, do you know what? We're looking for different topics, or we're looking for different things to mention on the podcast. What would you prefer we focus on? They might have a choice of 3 different topics and you can vote for your best one. All of this stuff is great if you're into this. So if you're a listener of a podcast, join the community. Now, if you have got a podcast yourself, why don't you build your own community? Start small, start doing it for free, start doing it on Patreon as well, which is a great place to have it, where you can monetize it if you want to. But start building that community and ask them questions. Simple as literally release an episode one day, then pose a question and post it in the group, then pose a couple of questions throughout the week about that particular episode, and then give them a flavour of what's going to be coming up. It doesn't have to be War and Peace, but what you're doing is you're interacting, you're engaging with your podcasting community. And if you're going to be a guest on a podcast, then use podcast communities as a tool to connect with different people. This is a great networking tool, especially if you're going to be a guest on a podcast. So you can join a podcast community, start interacting with people, start talking about previous episodes, especially if you've listened to them and you've got some good insights about that. But also having a chat with them. Have a chat with them and really start connecting with the different people. If you do that before your podcast appearance goes live, then when your podcast appearance goes live, they're already going to know you a little bit more than they would do if you hadn't done that engagement. That means more people might listen to your show. They might certainly be more comfortable asking questions to you. And it means that those relationships have already started to develop. So therefore, they're more likely to turn into something later on. You never know what opportunities you're going to get from being a podcast guest, or just sending a quick message out there, or connecting with podcast communities. So please, if you have got a podcast, build your community. If you're looking to get on a podcast, interact with these bad boys because they are great. And if you're a listener to the show, join it. Next up is you can become a guest on a podcast. Now, I've already given you a few tips like listening to podcasts, joining podcast communities. But for me, there's no greater honor than being a guest on a podcast. Think about it. You are being invited to talk to an audience where the host is trusting you to give insights and not, frankly, being a dick and just sell. That's a great honor. That's a great honor that a host is putting on you. And you're in a great opportunity to share knowledge, insights, and loads of truth bombs to help your audience grow in your particular field. It's great. It is great. Obviously, if you're going to if you're going to be a guest on a podcast, you need to listen to the podcast beforehand. You need to prepare your key messages based on what you've heard on those. You need to make sure you're promoting it before the episode goes out and also afterwards. You've got to do all that. But the main thing is you've got to make sure you are delivering value. Deliver value, engage with the community, and you are going to be in such a valuable place. And if you do that often, you're also going to improve your public speaking skills and get more confidence with your key messages because you're just repeating them time and time again. It might be in slightly different ways based on the question, how the question's asked, or how long you've got to speak for. But you're improving your key messages. Your public speaking skills will get better. So for me, being a guest on a podcast has loads of benefits. I think if you've got a podcast yourself, you make an ideal guest because you know what you're looking for. You know what good practices to take to someone else. And I think actually, to be fair, if you've got a podcast, it should be law that you should become a guest on someone else's podcast, just so you can see what it's like. But being a guest on a podcast is absolutely fantastic. And in fact, I've done a whole course about how to become a standout guest on a podcast. So if you did want to learn a bit more about how to become a kick-ass or a standout guest on a podcast, check out my course. It's on Udemy. It's only one of 2 things I'm going to sell you all day. But yeah, that's there if you want it. Then next up, let's move out of there. You can sponsor a podcast. Now, this is the most hands-off thing that you can do. the most hands-off thing you can do, because what this really does is it again shows the community that you support and you sponsor a show. Obviously, you've got to like the show you sponsor, and the best sponsorship deals are when the target audience match up for both parts. The target audience for you matches up with a listener base for that podcast. If them two things match up, then that is great, because your message is going to your ideal customers, and also they're going to get value because they're being linked up with someone who might help them. It's a great match. You've got to like the podcast. You've got to be able to shout about it, and you've got to really kind of be enthusiastic about being part of that show. You've also got to remember that being a sponsor isn't just about paying you money and job done. You shout about it on social media. You shout about it where you can. And this isn't just a one-time hit. You might get your logo onto their show. If so, share it. Put it onto your website as a podcast sponsor. Shout about it. This is a big, big thing. And depending on where in the show that you are sponsoring, you might have a little bit at the start. You might actually just have maybe a 30-second ad in there. You can change the word sponsor to advertise if you want to. Advertise is more hands-off. It is literally just I'm going to put my message on to this podcast and it'll be played for this amount of time, job done. Sponsor, it's a bit more into it. You do have to get a bit more into it and be a bit more involved in the whole, not production of the show, but the whole marketing of the show. You are more involved, but you do get more out of it. So, with the sponsors, please match your content with the show. Make sure you do like it. And if you've got any more questions about learning how to become a sponsor of the show, or if you've got a podcast and you haven't got sponsors, then have a think about what levels of sponsorship you can do. Start with something quite small and then go up to an all singing, all dancing package. Normally 3 sponsorship options is better than 2 or 5. And make sure that between the lowest point and the midpoint and the top point is even, or the gap between the top point and the middle point is a little bit smaller, so therefore it looks more attractive. So you could have a sponsorship option for 50 quid an episode, for 200 quid an episode, or 300 quid an episode. That could be an idea. But I could do a whole 30-minute presentation just about this topic. It's a big one. Main thing is match up your audiences. If you haven't got sponsorship already for your podcast, maybe think about it. It's not for everyone. But also, if you're a business, it's a great way of getting your message out there. Last bit is you can start your own podcast. Now, again, I've got another link because, again, I've done another course all about this. But starting your podcast is the most time extensive thing you can do. Is the most time extensive thing you can actually do, because it's your baby. This is what you want to do. This is your show. So you decide the guests, you organize it all. You do the editing if you want to. The main thing is starting your own podcast gives you full, complete control of that show. So if you're listening to podcasts already, pick all the stuff that you like about it, put it in there. Make a plan for the first 12 episodes so you know how it's going to work and how the episodes are going to flow from one to another, to another, to another. Choose your guests wisely. Make sure that they've actually got experience and insights that you want your audience to share, that you want to share with your audience. Sorry, my dog is barking. There you go. Let me hold him. Actually, everyone, say let's stand. But the main thing is really kind of you are in control of the show. So make sure you've got a plan. Make sure it also fits into the these three key areas. Make sure it gives value to you. You're going to get some development out of it. You're going to get some network connections, insights, or if you just want to fancy talking to people, do that. But make sure you're getting value from it. Make sure if it's tied to your business, it's linked to your business goals as well. Make sure it's part of your marketing strategy. Make sure that it's on your website. The branding's the same as your company's, all that kind of stuff. Don't make it just something extra that's nice to do, Because if so, the first thing when times are tough and it's too much work, or you haven't got enough time, or there's other projects going on, it's going to get scrapped if it's just a nice do. Make sure it's part of that strategy. And also, if it's for community, make sure that you are giving value to your community. You want to lead with value, lead with insights. And then afterwards, if people want to get stuff from you, so be it. As you might get tell, this is a free webinar that I'm doing, and I've thrown 2 links out, which I've purposely put into these bits here. That's it for me for selling. I don't care about really if you do those courses. It's great. They're on Udemy. I'll get some money from them. But the main thing is that I'm giving you 98% pure value from this. And that literally 2% is those 2 little bits that I've just put in. So always lead with value, always lead with insights, and make sure that, do you know what? You know who your target market is, and you are pitching to them based on the content and also the right guests being on your show. I love podcasting, and I'd recommend everyone thinking about starting their own podcast. But is it the right place for everybody? No, it's not. Some people are better guests than they are podcast hosts. Some people are better sponsors than podcast hosts, which is why I wanted to give you the 5 different ways of how you can get involved with podcasting. So, after all that, I just want you to pick 3 things. And if you could put them into the chat, that would be great in the comments. But let us know what 3 things you're going to start doing today. Are you going to start looking at who you could have for your podcast? Are you going to sign up for Apple Podcasts or Spotify and start listening to a few podcasts? Are you going to put yourself forward and put on LinkedIn that you want to start your own, you want to be a guest on a podcast, you want to talk about these 3 topics? Whatever you decide to do, you don't have to put them in the comments, but I would love to kind of hear about what you want to do and what you want to kind of go for. And I'm just going to really quickly recap the 5 ways again. So you can start listening to podcasts. You can connect with podcasting communities. You can become a guest on a podcast. You can sponsor a podcast, or you can start your own. Okay, so that is the presentation all done. Now I am here for the next 20 odd minutes to answer any questions that you have. So please put them into the comments. Any questions that you have, because that will be fantastic. Now, I've just realized that links on LinkedIn don't transfer over. So I'm going to put them in to the LinkedIn chat now while the questions come in. So please, if you have any questions, put them into the comments below. And I'm just going to quickly pop these into here so it's all sorted. Just while it's kind of going, and just while it's going there, because do you know what? I can't multitask, because you can say I'm a man. I don't care. That's fine. Let's do that. So that's 1. Hey, and it's appeared on my little thing, so that works. Right, and then that's 2. So, because I'm doing these, I'm getting quite a lot of questions anyway. So I'm going to throw a few questions out to you. Just so you've got them, really. The first question, and this is the most common question, but the question that it doesn't really make much difference, is what equipment do I need to start a podcast? So the 2 that I'm going to answer straight away: what equipment do you need, and how much is a podcast to start? So they're the 2 questions I'm going to answer right now for you. And frankly, it's not the most important questions in the world. It's not going to make or break your podcast having good equipment. What's going to make and break your podcast is having a kick-ass idea for your podcast. So if your idea is robust, you know what your plan is, you fitted it into yourself, your business, and your community, and you've got all those buy-ins from other people, you've got a set of 12 shows that you're going to do, you've got all that, you're going to be onto a very strong stand before any equipment. You are. What you can do then, and so the equipment side of it is simple. You need 2 bits really to start a podcast or to be on a podcast. You need something to record your voice, which a phone or your computer or a USB mic that costs £100. All of those stuff will help you just get your audio onto a computer, and then you need somewhere, somehow, or somewhere to upload your show. So that could be the same device. So effectively, you only need one device, but you might want to kind of pick and choose a little bit more. For most people, having a USB mic that plugs into your computer, which costs about 100 quid, is just about the only bit of equipment you really, really need. That's all you kind of need to go for. It is. No, so you've got the recording and you've got the place. Now, most places you upload it, you'll upload your show onto a podcast host, which will typically charge anywhere between $10 and $20, let's say a month, around those figures. There are some free ones out there, which is good, but you don't get some of the usability and some of the kind of the features that you might get on some that's paid for. That is the only real ongoing charge you're going to have for having a podcast. Podcast typically is audio, not video, but you could, if you've got video, you might as well use it, in my mind. So you could put it onto YouTube as well. And I know a lot of people do very well about putting their videos onto YouTube, having a dedicated channel for their podcast. So that's all good. So how much does a podcast cost? But maybe 100 quid, 200 quid to set it up in terms of getting a microphone, maybe changing the scenery behind you, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you got a branded t-shirt on, that kind of stuff, funky glasses. But you don't need massive amount of money to set it up. You can just do it with what you've got, and then you can build upon it. And then ongoing, 10, 12 quid, a month. It's not much at all. I have got a question here. So from Nikki. So I've announced that I've been a guest on the Anne Gurney's podcast. That's great. That's I must admit, I love Anne. She's great. So thank you for joining us. And I'm really glad to see that you're on Anne's podcast. It's the Tales of Transformation podcast. Check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcasts. A lot of time for Anne. She's lovely. So Nikki's just started to listen to other people's podcasts which are relevant to women's health and well-being, which is great. And she's about to research and start my own. Brilliant. So these are the 3 things that Nikki's going to be doing. So thank you very much for sharing as well. Nikki, if you've got any questions about any of those, please let me know, because that will be fantastic. It will be. And just wondering if you need a hand with any of that, let us know as well. But this is what I'm talking about, folks. I want you to be able to go away from this and have different things that you want to do. So for Nikki, for instance, she's just been announced she's been a guest on Anne Gurney's podcast. I wonder if she's going to put it out to anybody else that she would like to be a guest on someone else's podcast that might be working. She has put a question, actually. This is good. So how do you source guests? And I think it's quite straightforward. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can do it organically by going out to your network and having a chat with them. That way you will get some people, but it depends if you're going to get the right guests for your shows. If you're looking for a particular type of person to go on your show, you might be better off going to someone like matchmaker.fm. Let me just put matchmaker.fm. Now, Nick, I realize you're looking at LinkedIn. So the link won't transfer over, but it's basically matchmaker.fm. And basically what they do is they match up guests with shows. So you put in all of the stuff that you want to do about your show, and then a guest can kind of see it like an advert and apply to be on your show. It depends on what your podcast is for, and it depends on your goals for your podcast, which way is going to be better. You could approach other people to be a guest on your podcast as well. But it depends, again, if it depends on really what your show is about, and how local or how encased you want, not encased. It depends on where you want to go for your guests. Most people will go to their local network and then or put it onto social media and say, I'm looking for guests for my podcast to talk about this. And then they'll get 4 or 5 people from there. That's absolutely fine for them. Some people go to a service like matchmaker.fm. It depends on where it is. So hopefully I've answered your question, Nikki. But it really does depend on the content. And you need to, if you've got the plan for your podcast, so you've got your 12 kind of episodes, you know how each of the kind of episodes are going to be roughly kind of go towards. You can then kind of reverse engineer that and say, actually, this person's going to be great for this episode, and go from there. Then it's a case of just matching up your diaries, deciding if you're going to record in person or online, and then going from there, really. It is. But to make that kind of step actually easier, set up some like a calendar link or a online calendar anyway. So calendar is one that I use. So basically you can just say that you're available during these times, and then they can book in from there. That's probably the easiest way to book a guest. With those, you can also include a form as well, so therefore you can get some brief information about them as well. But really match up your guests to your episode plan. If anyone's got any other questions, then I will answer those. And Nikki says, thanks, Gary, I'll check it out. So that's all good. If you've got any more questions, just let me know. In the meantime, I've got a couple of gifts for you. And they're quite simple. I'm happy to offer anybody here a free 20-minute call. So if you're watching it on LinkedIn, please DM me on LinkedIn. My name's Gary Jones, but you'll be able to see my profile from this live. So DM me to say you want to book a 20-minute call, and I'll send you the link. And also, I have got a newsletter on LinkedIn, which I give a different article about podcasting every day. So I've just put those details onto those things. 2 quick free gifts for you. Free 20-minute call. Sign up to my newsletter to get articles from there. And do you know what? Why not just connect with me anyway? I would love to hear what you've got. Love to hear what you got going on in terms of podcasting. And if you know of anyone who wants to start podcasting but doesn't know where to start from, then pass them on to me, and I'll just do a free 20-minute call. It's fine. We can cover a hell of a lot in 20 minutes. You'd be surprised by the amount of stuff we can cover. So, thank you very much for watching. I think that's literally about it for me. Check out Grow Radio if you want to listen to a few podcasts. If you want to check out the courses we've got a new one coming up in May. We've just launched one for children's activity providers. We've got a new one in May about how to use podcasting as a networking and marketing tool, which is great. And we've already got the podcast launch guide and the standout guest guide as well. I'd love to kind of connect with you on LinkedIn. That's where I'm kind of hanging out most at the moment. But check out Grow Radio. Check out some of the podcasts which are on there. We play a different podcast on the hour, every hour. Weekends, we play different audio books, audio dramas on there as well, which is all good. But for me, I'm going to call it a day there. Take care, my friends, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye for now, and have a great